International Expo and Summit 2026. After the tea break, I hope it's a great time to start with the first panel discussion. And we are going to have our first thematic session on net zero and climate action beyond fundamentals and into actionables. I request once again everybody present here to kindly gather in the conference area, and please keep your mobile phones on silent mode so that we don't disturb the speakers. Thank you so much. I request all our attendees to kindly gather in the conference area. We are about to begin the first thematic session for the day one. And we sincerely hope that you would not like to miss out on any important bit of the same. So ladies and gentlemen, may I now invite our panelists and our moderator on the stage for the first thematic session. I request Colonel Rohit Dev, founder, Reveille Energy and strategic partner, BBB Summit and IEX, to kindly join us on stage. Please put your hands together for our moderator, Colonel Rohit Dev, for the first panel discussion. And now I request our panelists to kindly join us on stage. Dr. Gaurav Mishra from MNRE Government of India. A very warm welcome to you, sir. Ms. Shiva Raha from Council on Energy, Environment and Water. A very warm welcome to you, ma'am. Dr. Ritu Mathur from TERI. A very warm welcome to you, ma'am. Dr. Rasmus Alexander Wendt, Energy Counselor from Embassy of Denmark. A very warm welcome to you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, we now begin our first thematic session for day one on net zero and climate action beyond fundamentals and into actionables. Over to our moderator. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be amongst a very elite and very learned panel actually, because all of them come from a field where they lead, right from Gauravji, who leads policy advocacy, right from my favorite team of CW, which is India's rising consulting agency. And it will take the big four, it will overtake them very soon with our support and support of this government of the day. And then we have Dr. Ritu Mathur, who has consented to be here, comes from a very esteemed TERI, which is doing a yeoman's job for our country. And last but not the least, but the guest who is on stage is Mr. Rasmus, who comes from the Embassy of Denmark, and he is the economic counselor there. He has agreed to be on this panel. He's otherwise on a fireside chat later with the Brazilian special envoy to the COP. But the topic is dear to him. The topic is dear to most of us. So I think we'll start our conversation. This is basically a free-flowing conversation of ideas. And I will not limit your neither perception nor your vision about this. So we have heard a lot of things about climate change, where we are going wrong, how the temperatures are going to rise, how the ocean is going to become land and land is going to become air. I don't know what's going to happen. But in this milieu of the fears generated with logical thinking and scientific approach, vis-a-vis a lot of hypothetical arguments being made against climate change, especially by, if I may dare to say, some developed countries, which have been there, done that, industrialized, had a revolution, economy has grown to a per capita of more than $60,000, and they are telling us what to do, what not to do. India has got very peculiar challenges, and challenge A is not the people. The challenge is the aspiration of the people. So just like Europe or US or any other developed country, we still have to buy the air conditioners and the microwaves and other amenities for our people. So while we go to various forums, and Gauravji will bear me out because that's our USP, we say we are per capita lowest consumer of energy on earth. Uh, that is something which we couldn't do because we didn't, it's not that we didn't have appetite or aspiration, it's just that we didn't have the ecosystem to have reached those heights. So I think as the aspirations grow, the energy demand will grow, the per capita utilization of energy will grow, fossil fuel, non-fossil fuel, both will remain for a long time. Insofar as mining activities are concerned, I think coal will remain for next about 35, 40 more years. To scale, it will rise, it will inflate in terms of demand. And then probably we'll think of what pathways we have created then, how much has hydrogen taken off, how much has solar taken off, how much has other forms of energy taken off. So I think that is the pathway. And it's only by 2060, 65, 55, if we are lucky, that we'll be talking about, you know, the retail industry of India. So the retail industry today is running, you know, amok. All that BRSR is only happening on where we can do it and look nice all over the world. But the bigger, you know, supply chains are not getting audited. With that small suffice, and it's a great panel because there are two ladies this side, there are two gents this side. And I have no option but to begin with ladies first, but I will begin with the lady at the extreme, Dr. Ritu Mathur, because she comes from both the academic side and the industry side with a lot of knowledge. Dr. Mathur, I would like to understand from you, and this is a free-flowing first round, where the question remains same, your answers may vary. So where do you see this net zero and climate action going? Because the topic is very clear. We have to get into actionables. So where we are, where are the gaps, where we ought to be, and how do you reach there? This is a simple question to the four of you. And when we come to you, Rasmus, we would like to know what can be the advantage we can take as cooperation between the two countries to have these climate action, you know, issues being taken up and net zero being achieved. So over to you, Dr. Ritu Mathur.
Thank you. I think in setting the context itself, you talked about Viksit Bharat in a way that we still need to develop. We still are sort of with a per capita energy consumption, which is about a third of the global average. So I think India's challenge in terms of where we need to go is still a very huge and challenging situation in terms of our energy needs. That said, we also have a target for net zero. So while our energy overall will need to increase several times, at least 3 to 4 times, as we are looking towards our net zero decarbonization target, we also need to decarbonize simultaneously. And that is the challenge which makes us sit in a very different position from that of the developed countries when they decarbonized and after reaching their level of aspiration. So the first contextualization to me is how much are we likely to need and how can we minimize that. So energy efficiency is something which needs to play a very important role, and that's something which the country again is targeting very strongly, whether it is through our NDCs, whether it's through individual schemes or policies, where demand side management itself plays an important role and needs to continue that. I think the second large thing which I see in terms of a necessity and which is ingrained into our policies is that we need to move steadily and rapidly towards electrification. Electrification, again, is a way of improving efficiencies. When we look at any of the demand side requirements. And electricity also lends itself much more easily to decarbonization. So where we can, we need to push electrification of end-use demands more rapidly. In industry, again, we need to decarbonize away from fossil fuels as fast as we can. But again, there are some hard-to-abate sectors which remain with challenges. And therefore, the need to find multiple kinds of fuel options, multiple kinds of technologies, because electricity, again, is not a silver bullet which can end up meeting all the fuel substitution possibilities. As a country, again, we are we are blessed with a lot of renewable energy in terms of solar, etc. But biomass also traditionally has played a very important role in our energy mix, being used largely as a traditional fuel. I think there we have a large scope in terms of using this as advanced biofuel technologies to play a role in meeting this fuel substitution and filling in the need for energy across all the demand sectors and various categories. So, I mean, it's a balancing game, I think, for India. And at this point, I will leave it at, the need to have multiple options that will need to play a role, whether it is on the demand side or the supply side, to try and achieve the most sustainable way forward in achieving our net zero and Viksit Bharat goals as we move ahead. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ritu, because 2 points strike out. One is building in efficiencies, and second is having multiple pathways. I think that is the option which India should take, because for far too long, the options come to us from, the stratosphere and the galaxy, and whatever comes nice, fast, cheap, and is pushed towards us, we start taking that in and start building and putting our resources and manpower and money going into that. So India has to be a little more patient with this transition and need to look at various emerging options as well. And that is what the Secretary of MNRE was saying, that how do we develop an ecosystem to get more technologies and research factor coming into this country as well. So with that, let's move to the think tank of India. Over to you, Shubha.
Thank you very much, Colonel Dev. I want to explain for a second what is a think tank and how it differs from a consultancy. First of all, we are not for profit, but more importantly, all our research is free and in the public domain, and we work pro bono for our government. And a lot of the big four take our data and then charge the government for it. So we are not business oriented, so we don't actually consult for companies. So all of this data and research that we're doing is for, first of all, the national and then the global usefulness, I would say. A couple of things that I've heard since morning. You had started with aspiration, growth, and resources, right? The trilemma of that. And then Minister Gadkari spoke of conversion of knowledge into wealth. So CEW is actually at the center of that. We look at the use, reuse, and misuse of resources. And that energy is just one of the resources. We have resources like food and water and land and many other things. So when we look at a system, and net zero would be the transformation of a system, you need to take a system approach and a macroeconomic approach. So having a linear thought process of projections the way we do nowadays, that you have 10 of this, you need 20 of that, so you scale it up in a lean, that does not work. If you're looking at mid-century, 2047 is our Viksit Bharat, or you look at 2070, which is net zero, first we need to imagine what we are doing in that time. So we will not be doing what we're doing right now today. We will not be using the same things right now today. So there is a limitation of research that we do usually that does not have any foresight built into it, which means that working backwards from an envisioned future. So that is the first important point. The other assumption that we make is that developed countries do not have these challenges. See, developed countries have got unpeaked, let me put it that way, because now they're rearming, they're militarizing, data center technologies have come up, their GDP advantages are going away because they're unindustrializing, so they want to reindustrialize. So they are the entire fundamental of net zero, that they would have peaked at this time, they would have peaked at that time, that no longer holds. So we really need to go back to what is net zero now that all bets are off. So that is one. The second thing that I want to bring, and we spoke of multiple sources and transitions, and all of that is fine, but I want to talk of some of the trade-offs and the assumptions that we make in this journey. So for instance, is a sector transition ready? And if a sector is transition ready, are its dependent sectors and systems also the same transition ready? So let me give an example. Let's say AI and data centers. India is building a lot of this. AI and data centers need a lot of water. So does solar. So does nuclear. And so does agriculture and industry and all other things. So now we are getting into an associated resource. Now water itself needs a lot of energy for, let's say, desalination, reverse osmosis, etc. Are we planning for the energy needs of the water sector while planning for the energy needs of the data center? We are not doing these things. We are not making this cross-linked calculation, so we are going very wrong in our projections. So we will not have the resources that we are projecting for net zero or security. The third point I want to make is there are a bunch of erroneous classifications. We keep mixing up electricity and energy. They are not the same thing, right? So India's electricity is about 20% of our primary energy mix. So 80% is not electrical. But you will always see people interchanging these values. That leads to, again, wrong estimation. The second is taxonomies. What we call green, somebody else may not consider green. So when we're trading or their supply chains, interoperability does not exist. The third point would be force-fitting groups of sectors and nexus like global south countries or developing countries or resource-rich countries or critical mineral countries, because we are not taking into account their specifics and making generalizations. We are also assuming that all countries have the same resources and circumstances at the same time to be doing this at the same scale, at the same ratio. We have got CBDR in it, but that has not really percolated into the planning of either national level or international. So then what we are doing is everybody doing some of something at the same time, and none of them succeeding, but more than that, a rush for the same resources is creating vulnerabilities which did not exist and need not exist. So let's say critical mineral becoming sort of a war-like situation, right? Economic blockades on that, new sanctions coming up. So new vulnerabilities are being introduced into even clean energy systems, which might make actually the fossil fuel system simpler because it has fewer components between supply and utilization. A third type of prioritization that we're doing is equivalencing global priority and national security. Climate change is a global challenge, but each nation has its own challenges. And so the national priority, sovereign security, human security, national security is the primary of any country. So conflating national security with a global challenge, and there are many global challenges, is again a false equivalence. This is leading to multilateral situations where we are seeing that, let's say currently the UNCLOS, the land of the law of the sea, is being applied in a biased way. Certain countries are exempt from it, certain countries are being held to it, certain countries that are not even signatories are being asked to be held to it. So there are many things going on over here which can be drawn back into a resource war, right? It is, what is all this about? So eventually it all dials back into your national security. With this I come back to the macroeconomics of the transition, right? Is our food secure? Water secure, land secure, people secure, borders secure, trade routes secure. Only after that can you look at value-added situations such as a net zero, because otherwise you're endangering everything that you stand for and that the people need. So my submission here would be that we need a fresh look at net zero and the parameters that we are evaluating for it.
Thank you, sir. There's a perception which is very clearly brought out that we need to reevaluate. It also comes from a sort of a consideration that has India in its zeal for net zero 2070 actually mapped what would be the energy requirement in 2070, industrial, domestic, in that population, okay, that you can peg at 1.85, 1.9 billion that time. What does it come down to in terms of the drawdown from the energy sector? What are the pathways which are going to exist at that time? How are we planning for that? How much of that is self-reliance and what is going to be export? So I think there are many questions around that part, Shubha, I think need to be reconsidering, because while we have begun the chase to achieve net zero, we have defined some benchmarks and timelines, we still are not too sure what the energy segment would look like to fill up the appetite of both the industry and the, for personal consumption that time. You have heard Dr. Gaurav both, and the perception is to, think through this. You come from a background not only as a scientist, but as a person who's leading the MNRE in terms of the activities MNRE is spearheading in this segment of climate action. Where do you think we are in terms of the robustness of our current policies, all combined of all ministries? And where do you see us going? Are there any gaps which the industry can fulfill? Something on those counts.
Thank you, Colonel Rohit Dev. Per se, if we talk about net zero, so if we have to consider net zero and by 2070, if we have to achieve that, I'll see it from a different angle. Like it's a simple mathematics of managing a carbon molecule. If we are able to address this carbon molecule, whether it's at the industry side or energy side or agriculture side, I think we are in a good position to address this decarbonization and the net zero emissions on the national level. So I'll talk about the government approach, how they are actually addressing this decarbonization and specifically from the MNRE perspective, because the moment we have to address this carbon molecule, we have to introduce many different aspects of energy. Like for example, we have to introduce renewable energy at different levels and all. And specifically when we talk about the carbon molecule, it primarily the bioenergy comes into the forefront in that case. So from the ministry perspective, if we see, there has been over a period of time from the last many years, a clear approach, a clear focus was there on introducing the bioenergy at the different levels, be it on the grassroots by implementing small biogas plants, for example. And I'm happy to share that by now, the ministry has supported more than 5 million small biogas plants which are still running in the grassroots, which are not only addressing the waste management side at the grassroots, but it is also providing a cooking needs of the household level and strengthening the rural populace. So that's how the ministry is strengthening at all different levels. Now, when it comes to the urban areas and all, there has been a clear mandate, really a thought process by the Government of India that yes, we have to push CBG, for example, at a national level to address the transportation sector, wherein we had actually done some calculations earlier. For every 10,000 TPD, which are tons per day of CBG production and bringing into the transportation sector, we are able to substitute the CNG, the PNG side from which generally we are importing in the tune of around 13,000 crores on an annual basis. So that is what the number what we are talking about. So every 10,000 tons per day of a CBG, it brings down the import substitution of 13,000 crores of the forex. So that practically what is happening is we are strengthening the ecosystem within on the national level, and MNRE along with the other line ministries, so for example, MOPNG, Department of Fertilizers, cohesively they are working together to strengthen the complete base in that case. Then you have, for example, under the bioenergy, if we talk about, you have a pelletization plants. So the idea was to, because energy sector, if you talk about, the coal is the one of a major, the coal-based thermal power plants is the one of a major source of electricity generation. If we have to address the decarbonization at that level, we have to introduce the biomass options in that. So government have addressed that part by introducing through Ministry of Power, by bringing the mandate of blending and the biomass pellets and co-firing it with the coal in these thermal power plants in that case. So that shows a clarity at the government level how and when to introduce the different kind of the carbon molecule and replacing the fuels at a different level actually. So that's how the things are moving. And I think it's also a time to a food for thought for all of us in a sense, because India being an agrarian country, we have a substantial quantity of a biomass which is available at the national level. For example, we have around 228 million tons of surplus biomass which is available at the national level. We have more than 500 million livestock in the country, which generates somewhere around 1650 million tons of cow dung on the national level on yearly basis. Then we have the poultry waste, which is also of substantial quantity. Then we have a sugarcane industry generating substantial quantity of a press mud or bagasse, which is also a good source of energy, which can be used for the different applications. So idea is like if this kind of agriculture residues which is available at the grassroots and specifically in the rural areas, should we, and there are challenges at the urban areas of migration of people from the rural areas to urban areas and all, and which is actually creating a load on these urban centers and actually. So if we have to address the things at a different level, be it on the issue of a migration, be it introducing the renewable energy at the decentralized so that the transmission aspects can be taken care of, it's time to ponder or it's time to think aloud that shall we work together to strengthen the rural areas so that all these aspects of the energy can be dealt at a different level in that case. That's one. Second, because MNRE has been supporting this kind of bioenergy, as I have mentioned very clearly earlier as well, we are like running a national bioenergy program which have different subcomponents. Primarily, we are addressing the waste to energy segment, the complete wherein we are focusing on CBG and the biomass gasification and all those so and so forth. Also, for the power generation side, we have been like from the biomass side, the another component which is there prominent in the national bioenergy program, which focuses on the densification or the pelletization and the power generation from the biomass. Then we have, because as I mentioned, we need to strengthen the rural mass as well. So if we have to do that, so we have introduced another third component, which is this biogas plants. So that's how we are actually integrating all these different aspects along with the different line ministries and all. And we are strengthening all these aspects in a way so that we addresses the decarbonization at the different level, be it on the industrial or the rural or urban and all those centers in that case. So that's how we are approaching the net zero and looking at it from a different angle. And Government of India is very clearly focused about addressing this. And if there is any good suggestions from the learned people who are sitting over here, we are more than happy to take it up and take it forward with a good stakeholder consultations, and we'll look forward for this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Gaurav. I think on both my sides, one is working very hard, not taking money. Again, working very hard, not taking extra money. So I think we are in good hands because our think tank and our government is more than keen to interact with you, to get your views, to shape the future. In fact, the audience was less, otherwise I would have told to clap when Shubha spoke and also when Dr. Gauravji also spoke right now. But it's a good, heartening thing to see on stage these days. The second thing is, you talked about migration. So migration, Gauravji, it's got a problem of, the cities as well. The bigger problem is that migration should not make us something like Israel. If you go into history, Israel long time ago had an issue because nobody was cultivating and doing agriculture. They shifted it to cash crops and things like that. So India also today with just anybody can Google what's the migration rate of our country, 4.2% or something like that or more. Somebody Google that, right? So the Google will tell you that there will be a problem in the future because you will have less people in the fields. And we are talking about wasted lands which can be cultivated, should be for energy plantation. It's a far day ahead. So from the migration point of view, I will come to you, Mr. Rasmus. You have no migration problem. You got a population of 6 million. He comes from a great country because the population is generally about little less than Himachal Pradesh. You can understand Himachal Pradesh, right? And little more than Tripura maybe. So that's your population. No challenge there, but a huge advantages of technology, the processes, and the kind of social adaptability you have created, in your country, which I'm not saying we want to learn from you, because even if you teach us, we'll take a few million year more, understand what you're saying. But notwithstanding, tell us what India can take from Denmark in terms of processes, in terms of technology. You heard the secretary saying that, you are more open as a country to share technologies which you are doing at ground level in India, by going up and doing things. So what's your perception of net zero and climate action globally a little bit? Where do you think India has got gaps which can be addressed? And then those gaps, how can Denmark help to bridge those gaps or fill those gaps? Very simple. Global issue, India suffering, your solution.
Okay, I'm afraid it's not that simple, but let me try to give my perspective on it. So what I think I will do is I will address the challenges that India is facing, and also many other countries, and then I will talk a little bit about the international cooperation, the two C's, the challenges of the cooperation. But before I do that, let me just talk a little bit about net zero in Denmark and what we have done and what we have not done, perhaps. First and foremost, climate policy, net zero, is on top of the political agenda in Denmark and has been so for quite a long time. And also there is a very broad support, both in the public and among political parties, that Denmark needs to be a front runner when it comes to combating climate change. And I think that's extremely important, that we have this sort of very broad coalition of parties. So this is not something that will change every fourth year after an election. It's something that investors know that even when a new government, or if a new government comes in Denmark, the policy on climate policy will be the same. So I think that's one important lesson that can also be passed on to other countries, India, and I would also like to say also to the Americas, where we can see very dramatic shifts in climate policy. What we have decided in Denmark is that we actually have a climate law, meaning that it's not when the politicians claim that we will be net zero by 2050, this is actually put in a law, so they are legally responsible for being so. We have a climate target also for 2030, saying that all electricity consumed in Denmark by 2030 should come from renewable sources. That's first and foremost in Denmark, wind and solar. And then secondly, we should also have reduced our CO2 emission by 80% by 2030 compared to what we emitted back in 1990. So we have quite ambitious targets, and actually the political goal is to be CO2 neutral already by 2045 and actually being CO2 negative by 2050. And how can we achieve that? That we use a number of techniques, but basically it is making sure that all electricity is from renewable sources. Secondly, that everything we can electrify, we will do that. That is the transport sector, that is within industry, that is for households. Because we know already now that we have the technology in place for producing clean energy. As it was also told this morning by our ambassador, by 2031, all the gas that we will consume in Denmark will be biogas, and of course that's also renewable. And then we will also still, because there are some things that is hard to decarbonize, aviation for instance, the technology is not there yet. So we will also have to rely on carbon capture and storage like you do here in India. But let me come back to some of the challenges that you're facing. And first and foremost, it's not a walk in the park for India to become CO2 neutral, because while there's already a lot of issues and problems associated with that, you aspire to become a fully developed economy by 2047. And you will have to do something that no other countries on earth have ever done before. You need to develop your economy, and you need to scale down or bring down your CO2 emission at the same time. Extremely difficult. You talked before about developing in rural areas. Very, very important. If you want to combat poverty globally, targeting the rural areas is extremely important. So that's a major challenge. Then we also need to still develop some of the technologies while we are sort of walking. We know that we need to bring down the CO2 emission, but not all technologies are there. When it comes to green fuels, for instance, we still need to be better at that. And that's not least true from aviation fuels, SAF. We need to make sure that we can actually be better at utilizing wind and solar, probably also nuclear, even though that is not something that we're not using in Denmark. And finally, it's also a matter of resources. Minerals is a scarce resource, land is a scarce resource, water is a scarce resource, and also having sufficient with well-skilled labor is also a challenge. So there's a lot of challenges ahead, not least for India in this process here. So how can we work together on these issues here? And I would say, I'm proud to say that Denmark is very keen to work with partners. We are working with partners in 25 countries around the globe on the green agenda. And our biggest partner is India, but we are also working, for instance, with the US, with China, with France, but also a number of African countries. So it's very spread out. We put a lot of effort into that. But one of the things that is extremely important is also that we have a common agenda, that all countries sort of align behind the net zero agenda. And we can see there are hard pushbacks globally on that. So it's something where I hope India will stay firm and still, support the net zero agenda in global forums. Then also, there's a huge need for investments, not least in the global south, the global north, or what we used to call the OECD countries, will need to sort of take their part of the responsibility and make sure that there are available funds for investments in the global south within renewables, something that Denmark is also strongly pushing for among our peers in the European Union, and something we think is extremely important. Then you mentioned technology transfer. I think the best way to actually have the transfer is that there are sufficient investments within India or the global south in general, where we can sort of transfer the technology by the companies. A lot of the technology is actually already known. And I also have to say, when it comes to technology transfer, I have to say it's actually India transferring technology to Denmark. One of our biggest, or Vestas, one of the biggest Danish wind turbine producers, biggest R&D facility is in Chennai. So we already have technology transfer, but it's actually going from India to Denmark. And then I would say what we are also doing a lot of work with our Indian colleagues within the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy and the Ministry of Power is on how to put up the best possible sort of political frameworks to secure that we'll have more renewable energy in the grid system in the future. So I think these words I will pass on the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rasmus. So first was the query that you wanted India to continue in its quest and not leave our policy advocacy for the future terms. I think the people are going to drive it. Politically, the government is inclined, and hopefully it stays a little longer to make sure the tracks are set on fire. But the first part, the lesson which I take from everything which you have said, is for us to understand as a country is that no matter who's at the top, no matter which the government is, the policy remains accountable to the country's, perspective, growth, and transition. That's a very niche point, and it resonates with what I was saying in the morning, that unless you get energy security into Union list of India, we have too many, all kinds of fryers and dryers who will not make it happen generally. But anyway, leave it to the other day. Golden words have been spoken, and as they say, golden words are never repeated, right? And we are running short of time as well. But notwithstanding, I will take a couple of questions, or maybe 3 or 4, from the first row of round tables only, which means that if you have a question at the back end, come to this table and sit with confidence and then ask the question. Because this is a trend in our country that we'll hide in some corner and see what's happening and then talk about it only on social media, on Twitter. So please come ahead and ask your question. No, I'm just joking. Ask your question wherever you are. Yes. See? First row question. Yes. Just introduce yourself briefly.
Yeah.
In no question, I want to know what your company does.
Okay.
Your name, at best your company or university from where you belong, and your question.
So hi, my name is Sahil. I'm the founder and director of Brio Green Technologies. We basically convert biomass ash that comes out of from bioenergy furnaces into silica. Can you hear me? No? Okay, so my question is directed to Dr. Gaurav. When we talk about pelletization plants that are being promoted by the Indian government, we talk about bioenergy and the electricity that is being generated from it. What is the Indian government planning to do about the waste that is being generated from the bioenergy plants? Because at the end of the day, it should not be about waste to energy, but also about waste to energy to value creation. If that ash holds some value, like let's say silica value or some agricultural potential in it, does government have any plans to frame some policies in that aspect or in that regard? Thank you.
The biomass generally is called as what we are, the government, if we have to address on the biomass side, we are talking about the circular economy side. So till now, some of the aspects or some of the byproducts, which be it from the biomass power or densification or CBG per se, there are some byproducts which are available. For example, CBG, you generate FOM and LFM, right? So that's the only byproducts you have. So the government has clearly a focused approach on addressing these kind of byproducts. And they have introduced the Market Development Assistance Program specifically for creating a market for FOM and LFM on this side. Similarly, the power side, primarily you have only the ash which comes out because it follows the combustion route, the Rankine cycle of what we are talking about. So ash, as of now, there is not much of the focused approach have been specifically on the mandate or the policy or the incentives on that side. But there has been a discussion or the talk at the higher levels and all. Suppose we have to address the complete circular approach, so what should be the incentives or what should be the different kind of approach we need to bring in to address these kind of the byproducts of the bioenergy aspects in that case. So that the discussions are still going on, and very soon we will be coming up something lucrative for the complete industry as such. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gaurav. Yes, that's the last question.
Hi, my name is Surya Guduru from Embolon. There's been a lot of discussion about biogas, and most of the focus is on biogas to power or biogas to CBG. What is the government thinking and the private sector thinking about diversifying pathways to going beyond just CBG and power, perhaps biogas to liquids in a modular format? So any thoughts around there in terms of public-private partnerships or policy incentives?
I think if you are focusing on if your ask is something related with the biogas, because currently it's being majorly used for the power or the alternative fuels and in transportation sector. if you are looking something beyond that, in just for your update and all, the government has supported one of our CBG project where the excess CBG which is being generated is being converted to a liquefied of this portion. So we are actually working, we are evaluating all the options and how if suppose if there is excess of this thing, where all it can be a value proposition is created in that case. So we are nowhere we are excluding anything left aside. We are addressing each and every such value propositions which comes in a way, and we are not leaving any stone unturned to address all those things. So that's on cards for sure.
So we have you tomorrow for the discussion. We'll take your inputs because you wrote a long, I don't know, LinkedIn or email to me, so I read that later. Anything pressing? Pressing. It will change the fate and destiny of this country, then you only speak. Bolo. We'll not disappoint you. That's the last one.
Thank you, sir, for giving me the opportunity. I am Piyush Pandey, founder and director of my own company, Varanasi Recyclers Private Limited. Sir, मेरा question, can I speak in Hindi just to make the people understand? Sir, actually हर कोई वाराणसी में प्रोजेक्ट लगाना चाहता है. जब से PM कॉन्स्टिट्यूंसी हुई है, तो एक स्टार्टअप को ज़मीन मिलने में भी बहुत प्रॉब्लम हो रही है. बिकॉज एवरीबडी वांट्स कि हम MSME को देंगे. Every policy is coming right now for MSMEs. तो what is the policy for the startup then? जैसे हम जाते हैं तो यूपी में भी बताते हैं लोग कि आप यहाँ चले जाइए, आपको यहाँ से ज़मीन मिलेगी, दिस इज़ द नोडल एजेंसी एंड दिस माइट बी द कंसर्न पर्सन. तो इतना सब गैप्स है. हाउ टू फिल दैट गैप्स अगर हम विकसित भारत की बात कर रहे हैं. और इस तरह के समिट में आना हमारे लिए एक सौभाग्य की बात है. Because if all policy makers and industry leaders are here, so we can have a proper roadmap for that. So that is the basic my question, that if startup is thinking for something big, like we are expecting a 7 to 8 tons MSW RDF based plant in Varanasi, but we are not getting a land. So without having a land, how can we proceed further? That is the basic question. Because a startup can think big. So this is, I think.
So your question is a little specific of your requirement in Varanasi.
Yes, sir. And
so unless you take 15 more dips, it may not happen there. But let's keep it to another query offline because I would not put him on the spot because he's looking at the central policies.
Yes, sir.
Land acquisition is not their domain. It's a state subject as well.
Yes, sir.
So you interact with me over lunch. I will tell you your problem solution.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Thank you, sir.
Rohiji, but I'll address in a two lines.
Yes, sir.
Center and state, they work on different levels, right?
Yes, sir.
The policies which the center provides and the state has also got different policies for startups or something.
Yes, sir.
So center is actually working with the state governments back to back to reduce that gap so that these kind of startups can be like taken up on a much larger scale in that case.
Yes,
so yes, that is being addressed and very soon. And as you talked about the land, this is actually a land is always a state subject.
Yes.
So that I am not able to like answer on that part, but yes, on the startup side, the kind of a support from the center as well as the state, that's also being addressed in that case.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
No,
She wants to add something for your
I just
consumption.
want to add the broader point to this, which is what we said, that land as a resource or even water as a resource, planning has to be done in an integrated way and not at a project level the way we do right now. Because
There
we'll
was
keep
somebody who brought
running
that
into
point earlier as well, who said that command areas were made by PEDA in Punjab, but after that everybody, got the grass at 2 rupees, 3 rupees, 4 rupees, and now people are running after the grass. That's good. That's a good thing to happen. So without much ado, I would thank my panelists personally, Dr. Ritu Mathur, for being here. I think the 5 of us will be again in some session in July. I will not announce it now. not like this, but little more, you know, intellectually based kind of a thing. We'll construct through MNRE and let everybody know. Thank you, Shubhaji, for being here.
Sir,
Thank you, Rasmus, for being here. And thank you, Gauravji, for being here. And people who have had lunch and saying, sir, they can meet me after this, please.
Thank you so much.
Please request of say, only 1 minute only.
No. Later.
Only 1 minute, sir. Please.
Okay, you will only speak for 1 minute. Nobody will answer.
Okay.
I knew you're doing that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I am Lalit Chudiwala and I am in research. और मैंने सिंपल सा एक नया मेथड डेवलप किया है जिससे हम CBG को ग्रीन हाइड्रोजन विदाउट कार्बन एमिशंस बिलो 100 रुपीस kg, LPG कंपोनेंट ऑफ इथेन प्रोपेन बुटेन और वो भी 60 रुपये किलो तक आएगी, एथिलीन विदाउट कार्बन एमिशंस डेवलप किया है, टियर लेवल 4 कंप्लीट कर चुका हूँ और IIT रोपड़ में इंक्यूबेट हूँ और मतलब कि पूरे वर्ल्ड का 10% पोल्यूशन कम हो सकता है। इंडियन गवर्नमेंट को 2 लाख करोड़ का बचेगा कम से कम।
Thank you.
और इन्वेस्टमेंट देख रहा हूँ।
Thank you for saving that cost to the exchequer.
Thank you.
But can your technology rewind back 30 seconds? The answer is no. So thank you so much for that. Please close it.
Thank you so much. We thank all our panelists for this wonderful path-breaking discussion on the theme Net Zero and Climate Action Beyond Fundamentals and into Actionables. And we also thank our audience for asking questions. And now we request our moderator, Colonel Rohit Dev, to kindly felicitate all our panelists for gracing the occasion and for their valuable contribution to the session. So we request you to kindly honor Dr. Gaurav Mishra from MNRE, Government of India. Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your inspirational words with us and for your time. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Dr. Gaurav Mishra. Thank you so much, sir. Now we request you to kindly felicitate Ms. Shiva Raha from Council on Energy, Environment and Water. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your views. Thank you so much for gracing the occasion. We request you to now kindly honor Dr. Ritu Mathur from TERI. Ma'am, thank you so much for being a part of this discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together. Let's keep the energy going. And now, sir, we request you to kindly felicitate Dr. Rasmus Alexander Wendt, Energy Counselor from Embassy of Denmark. Thank you so much, sir, for your time, and we appreciate your presence for our first thematic session on net zero and climate action beyond fundamentals and into actionables. And those of you who couldn't ask questions, you can definitely ask questions offline. And now we request everybody to kindly come forward for the group photograph. Once again, please put your hands together for the first thematic session 1 on net zero and climate action beyond fundamentals and into actionables. Ladies and gentlemen, we now request some transition time because now it's time for the first fireside chat. Once again, we thank all our esteemed panelists. Thank you so much. Thank you.